Okay, thank you very much, Sage. I will call this meeting of the Village Board of Trustees to order. Will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I have a couple of things I wanted to do early on here. I know everyone wants to talk about traffic, but I have a proclamation for our village clerk who is going to be leaving us on Friday. So I would just like Kathy to come in. All right. And I might even have to put my glasses on. There's a lot of text here. Okay. Whereas the Village of Southampton wishes to formally recognize and honor Village Clerk Kathy M. Sweeney for her unwavering commitment, exceptional service, and profound dedication to our community. And whereas Kathy M. Sweeney has dedicated 7 years of outstanding public service to the Village of Southampton, consistently executing her duties with the highest level of professionalism, integrity, and grace. Whereas as the trusted steward of the village records, she has meticulously preserved our history and managed yearly village elections with the utmost precision and attention to detail. And whereas her commitment to local government is further demonstrated by her leadership milestones within the Long Island Village Clerks and Treasurers Association, proudly serving first as Suffolk Director and then as second Vice President, and whereas for her exceptional leadership as Department Head of the Clerk's Office and her vital role in coordinating Cooper's Beach operations, have greatly enhanced the administrative efficiency and community spirit of both Southampton Village Hall and our beloved Cooper's Beach, rated #1 beach in the United States. And whereas her constant helpfulness, kind words, and warm sense of humor have consistently uplifted colleagues and residents alike, leaving an enduring and positive mark on our local community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, William M. Mangert Jr., Mayor of the Village of Southampton, do hereby extend our deepest gratitude to Kathy M. Sweeney for her exemplary dedication and perseverance throughout her tenure, declare that she will be profoundly missed by all, and wish her the absolute greatest success in all her future endeavors. Thank you, Kathy.
No picture?
Yeah.
The moment I started working here until my last day, which is Friday, I'm serving all of you. And everyone has my mobile.
Kathy, can we do a quick picture? You have
Yes, of course.
your camera. We can do a quick picture with you so that we can memorialize. Thank you, Chief.
There is a seat down front, by the way. Oh, it's being held. Sorry. Okay.
All right, cool. Okay. All good? All right. All right. What? I know. Thank you for saying that.
I truly believe that, though. The majority of you do have my mobile, so I appreciate it. So if there's anything I continue to serve. So I know in my other cards you will know that. So if there's anything I can do, I can do that. Thank you all.
And I have one more brief announcement, and that is Sage Certain, our videographer, since our last meeting, became a father to a baby girl named Casca Abigail. Okay, now we'll move on with the meeting, and we will start with a board presentation by Ryan Winter, our traffic engineer from VHB. You have the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, Board, residents. Just give me 1 second. I need to share my screen.
Sage, you got it? There we
Got
go.
it. Very good. All right. So, again,
Here we go. There we go.
now we're live. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I appreciate you inviting me here to speak. We've been working diligently over the past few months on a variety of traffic issues across the village, and I was asked to come in and kind of give an update on what we've been doing and where we stand with some of those various efforts and initiatives. A lot of this focuses around the traffic in the western end of the village along Hill Street, and specifically that impacts the residential streets adjacent to Hill Street, Lee Avenue, Captain's Neck, Halsey Neck Lane. So, just to recap quickly what we're going to talk about first, well, is that better?
Can you get any louder?
I'll try to talk louder.
The mic's not turned on.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah. Sage, anyone?
I will try to talk louder.
Okay.
So, again, Lee Avenue, we went through a variety of options, and VHB looked through the benefits and drawbacks of each option, which I'll go through this evening. And in addition to the Lee Avenue work, we've been doing a variety of other traffic calming and safety improvements within the village that we will touch on as well, and give a quick update on some other traffic efforts and initiatives, both within the village and beyond more regionally. So we've been working with finding a solution to some of the traffic issues at the western end of Hill Street for several years. I think everybody in this room is aware that it's a larger issue that extends beyond the village, where there's commuter traffic in the afternoon that really jams up roadways throughout the village, but especially in the western end. This is not so pronounced in the morning rush because the traffic is heading into town and the congestion is to the west. So our focus of the studies has really been in the afternoon when it's most impactful to the village. So with that said, we've come up, we've worked with the village, I would say, and constituents and stakeholders to develop several options to assess and try and come up with a solution to remediate some of the traffic conditions that are being experienced in those areas, which I will go through quickly. The first one we were looking at was a driveway clearance striping. As you can see from the photo here, this is a fairly simple striping improvement that would identify in the roadway where driveways are, and with signage prohibit vehicles from queuing in front of those driveways. So this is an example of something that has already been in place in several areas on Long Island. This photo is showing you on Shelter Island as you approach the North Ferry. This is the ferry traffic lane. This often backs up in the summertime for about half a mile or so, and it blocks off these residences. The town has put in this striping and signage to enforce maintaining access to these driveways. So in the case of a resident wants to get in or out, or there's an emergency, access can be maintained. In this instance, on Lee Avenue, when we looked at this, again, fairly easy to install. It doesn't really improve the traffic conditions other than allowing access into those driveways. It was noted that access to the residences during the rush hour times was a concern. So this would alleviate that issue, but it is difficult to enforce as you need somebody there. And it does add striping to the roadway, which is not desirable on a lot of these local residential streets. The second option we looked at was to find ways to restrict, the next several options I should say, look at ways to restrict turning movements off of Lee Avenue and potentially other roadways along Hill Street to reduce the demand of vehicles on those roads in the afternoon. We have, as I think many of you know, executed pilots over the last 2 years to look at ways to try and remedy that using channelizing devices. We used barrels and cones and signage. There were mixed results from those pilots. So as we're looking through these options, just keep in mind that we are also looking back at what was done and how the traffic performed during those pilots, and then using that to develop some of these conclusions that we have listed here. So this wheel-based traffic signal was an idea to more visibly prevent traffic and detect traffic to turn in a specific direction during certain hours of the day at a given location. So as you can see from the screen here, it's a fairly simple movable traffic signal that would show an arrow in the direction you're allowed to turn at a given time. So this product is relatively small in comparison to the temporary traffic signal that we installed on Hill Street last year during the pilot study, which was not well received. This would be a little more compact and less obtrusive from an aesthetic perspective. However, it does require tie-in to an existing traffic signal, either temporary or permanent, to function properly. And given the location of the side streets that we were going to incorporate this signal at, it was not feasible to make that connection. Additionally, New York State does allow this temporary traffic signal to be used, but only in very specific instances. And the instance in New York that it's allowed is for work zone conditions to replace a flagger. So essentially, you would have one lane operating and taking on two directions of traffic intermittently. So rather than a flagger, you would put this signal. So this signal option, although creative, was not found to be viable for this. So now we get into some more physical geometric modifications that were being proposed and looked at again. As part of the pilot, we did do some channelizing at Lee Avenue and Captain's Neck to see if we could reduce the traffic impacts on those roadways and improve the flow on Hill Street. And what we found was, while it did reduce the traffic volumes on Lee and Captain's Neck, the volumes on Hill Street remained fairly consistent. Traffic shifted over to Halsey Neck Lane, and it also shifted additionally to the north side of Hill Street on Bishops. This figure just depicts a permanent installation of the channelization option. It was noted by some of the stakeholders that the pilots, while there was value in the data, was a short-term duration, and you don't really get that driver familiarity with the improvements during a 2-week trial. So the thought was that perhaps there would be better response to a longer-term installation of a similar improvement. So from a traffic perspective, our thought on this is that while it would reduce the traffic on Lee Avenue, you are still going to see increased traffic on adjacent streets. So what we saw a lot was that traffic was coming down Lee or Captain's, making a right on Hill, and then heading north on Bishops towards McGee, or they were going, like noted, down Halsey Neck and then making a left on Hill. Given the volume of traffic on Hill Street, we would anticipate similar patterns to occur even with a longer duration installation of this channelizing island. In addition to the channelizing island, an option we looked at was an ingress-only option, which essentially creates a one-way condition on Lee Avenue in the vicinity of Hill Street. This is depicting a sample on the screen of about 70 feet with a physical bump out that would prevent or deter vehicles from heading northbound to Hill Street. So Lee Avenue would be one way south in that segment only. This reduces, obviously, the traffic on Lee Avenue. There would still be an enforcement component, given that it's such a short span of one way. There is a tendency to for disregard of these type of improvements, as we've seen in other traffic improvements based on studies across the country. And it does result, similarly to the channelizing device, in an increase in traffic on adjacent streets. So you're taking the Lee Avenue traffic and really pushing it elsewhere. So you could say you could try to move it over to do another improvement in Captain's Neck and then force people to Halsey. And you know, you could try to string that along and head it down to even to First Neck. But at some point, the residents and the workers in the estate section need to get out. So there's going to be a place where those vehicles are queuing up to enter Hill Street. One more physical option that we looked at in terms of geometric changes on Lee was to create a dead end. So that would mean physically cutting it off either at Hill Street or at Ox Pasture and separating it from the rest of the estate section. The benefit, obviously, is that Lee Avenue would would not no longer handle any cut-through traffic. It would just be for residences. However, it would, similar to the other options, incur additional traffic on the adjacent side streets, and it would also potentially create a access issue for emergencies. You need a turnaround on any dead-end roads of 150 feet or greater, and the available right-of-way width on that road does not allow for such a turnaround. So now getting away from the geometric changes, one of the other conditions that we looked at was, can we incorporate some turn restrictions with signage within the estate section to deter vehicles from accessing Hill Street, similar to what is done on the north side currently with the turn restrictions on Somerset and Bishops and Corrigan. This would look to incorporate not only restrictions or physical channelizing device improvements at Hill Street for Lee and potentially Captain's Neck, but also restrict right turns onto Halsey Neck from Ox Pasture and Great Plains, forcing traffic that wanted to get to that intersection to go up Meadow or Boyson or some other roadway south of that area. So while this would be more circuitous, there's no, based on the level of traffic on Hill Street, we feel that there would still be cars making that movement. So again, you're really just pushing the traffic around, but it may reduce the volume of traffic that is actually using Halsey Neck or those other roadways, because it becomes a little more roundabout to get where you want to go. The final option we looked at was removing the Hill Street turn restrictions altogether. So this would involve removing the north side turn restrictions that are currently in place and allowing the traffic to flow essentially without restriction to access Hill Street. The benefit of this is it reduces the load on enforcement. It makes it easier to manage. You would still enact your commercial vehicle restrictions on all these roadways, so you'd have the ability to regulate, but you would not be restricting turns at any of these roadways onto Hill Street. The drawback is that there's been previous studies done on Somerset and Bishops that showed that this was a benefit. So you would be adding traffic back on those roads, and you're adding conflict points on Hill Street, which ideally we're looking to avoid to improve the flow on Hill Street. So just to take it all back into perspective, you know, the traffic along Hill Street is really a function of the larger volume of cars that are leaving the South Fork, inclusive of traffic that is generated within Southampton Village. And finding a solution to eliminate traffic on the residential streets without improving the flow on Hill Street and ultimately on County Road 39, where we want the vehicles, is not feasible without impacting other residential streets in the neighborhood. So when you put a change in place on one roadway, the cars are going to find another way to go, because the volumes are so heavy on these primary roadways that it is difficult to add any more volume. They're already at their max. And I'll just, I'll close with the Lee Avenue for now. Happy to answer any questions, but you know, these options are presented to the board and the community for consideration. We're continuing to work with the village to come up with a solution, and we'll, you know, happy to work with you on developing something that is amenable from a traffic perspective and for the community.
Thank you, Ryan.
Sure.
Is there any more?
I just have a couple of quick
Okay.
hitter things to touch on outside of Lee Avenue. Additional traffic calming and safety improvements that we've been working with the village on. On Somerset Avenue, there was a guide rail recently installed along one of the sharp curves on the south side of Somerset, which has improved the safety of that area. And there's additional improvements being considered. There was extensive safety measures proposed in a concept plan that was prepared about a year ago, and those alternatives are still being looked at this point for potential incorporation. And then at Somerset and McGee, we worked with the village to install a raised intersection to reduce travel speeds through the intersection. It was and still is fairly wide intersection, so we were able to geometrically tighten it up a little bit and add a vertical component which forces vehicles to slow as they traverse through the intersection. Happy to hear any reaction to that, but from what I've seen and driven through there, it seems like it's working fairly effectively. Moses Lane and Fox Hollow Lane. The stop signs on Moses were removed as part of a pilot to assess the condition of traffic once they were removed. We're in the process of reviewing that and identifying how that does or doesn't impact traffic. Our understanding was the stop signs were installed to reduce speeds through the area, and there are no apparent safety concerns with the removal of the traffic sign at this point. So, barring any historical safety conditions that we're not aware of, or any comments from the public, we'll work with the village to continue to assess and come up with a conclusion on how to address this in the long term. First Neck Lane and Hill Street. About 2 years ago, we incorporated a westbound left turn lane onto First Neck Lane from Hill Street to make traffic flow better through that intersection, especially in the westbound direction where there were often queues for vehicles trying to make the turn and through vehicles trying to get around them. The new alignment seems to be operating well. There was some confusion when it was first installed by some related to the opening in the middle that accommodates Viridian Way. So the striping has been modified and tweaked several times. We're continuing to look at that and see if there's ways that we can continue to improve that intersection and make it as safe as possible. And then finally, on a larger scale, the village has continued to install speed feedback signs across the village. These are a proven countermeasure for speeding cut-through traffic. They do work for a percentage of vehicles, so are a valuable tool for the village to continue to incorporate when appropriate. In addition, the village is coordinating with the town of Southampton. There's traffic committee meetings that are ongoing, discussing coordinated efforts between the town and the village to improve traffic conditions. Suffolk County DPW has been working on a traffic study for CR 39. The status of that is that it's supposed to be released sometime this year. That will give some options for long-term solutions to County Road 39 which are really needed to help address some of the traffic conditions we're seeing in this village. Without changes to County Road 39, a lot of these improvements within the village are just going to remediate to a minor degree the traffic that we're experiencing. And New York State DOT coordination, if you've noticed driving west in the PM rush, hopefully not because you're sitting in traffic, but that's Montauk Highway and St. Andrews Road, the signal's on flash during the PM to help expedite traffic heading west on Hill Street continue to the west and out of town. And that is continuing to be coordinated with the state DOT. Now that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. I'm going to turn to the village board first to see if they have any questions before we open it up to the public. So Ed or Willa and Roy and Rob.
Oh, I just wanted to go over that temporary no left or right turn signal
Mhm.
again. So there were two problems. It can't be hooked up to a regular traffic light. There's no way to do that. Was that one? And then the other one was it's against the law. Is that-
It's the use we were looking to incorporate it with is not allowed in New York, we found.
Mhm.
Different states have different allowances for certain traffic control devices that aren't standard per the traffic manual, and this is one of those devices.
And do you know if there's any opportunity to ask for a waiver in any particular situations, or we're not sure at this stage?
So even to use that device in the approved manner, you need to get authorization from New York State DOT. In my experience with unique traffic control devices such as this, they are very hesitant to approve those because of fear of safety and confusion that they may cause for drivers.
Okay, and then we're also not able to hook them up. Was that something else that you said, that we, even if we got permission, we're not able to get?
So they would need to be physically connected to an adjacent traffic signal.
Okay.
And not that it's impossible, but you're talking thousands of feet of cable that you would need to string along for this to be installed. So it's not impossible, but it would be a significant lift.
And then absent that option, it would have to be signage if we wanted to install some no left or right turns. It would be signage like on the other side of the road? of the
Right, so
street?
signage would be one of your options, or we went through some of the geometric improvements with the raised median in the middle or the egress only that would restrict turns or movements at the intersection physically.
Okay, thank you.
Signs are sometimes difficult to enforce, so the geometric improvements make it a little more daunting and deters additional folks from making an illegal maneuver.
Are there cameras that can be installed to ticket motorists who violate signs, or do we do that?
At this time, no.
No. Okay.
The state has not approved it for use by villages. We have to get special
Okay.
legislation from the state to do that. I've applied for the last 2 years, and unfortunately, it's not moving forward.
I have a question on the one-way solution on Lee Avenue. Instead of putting the one-way at Hill Street, could you put one on Ox Pasture so cars won't go in Lee Avenue to start with?
I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do that. I think you're in a little more, I don't want to say isolated, but you're a little less visible location, so I think your compliance would be even more challenging in that location than at Hill Street, where you're more visible to folks driving through. But it's something that could be considered also.
You'd also be, I think, requiring residents of Lee Avenue and Hetty Creek, if they wanted to get back home from east, to go onto Hill Street, I believe. I had a question related to the one-way, the ingress only, I think was your option number 4.
Sure.
You mentioned the need for a dead-end, turnaround in the dead-end situation. Wouldn't you also need some kind of turnaround with the ingress-only solution, and where would that be?
So you do not need an ingress, you do not need an access for the ingress only because emergency vehicles are permitted during calls to violate traffic.
I'm wondering about the traffic that would blow past signage, and even with all of that, they get distracted, they come down, oh my gosh, I can't take this left turn, that would then need some way to turn around to get back out of Lee Avenue. How does that happen in that case?
Yeah, no, it's, well, there's no dead end per se let me step back. The turnaround for the dead ends is a fire code requirement. So while it's inconvenient to have no turnaround at a dead end, it's not a code requirement in terms of cars needing to turn around. It would potentially create a traffic issue. That's a valid point if that's happening frequently. But the thought is that once this is installed for a period of time, you're not going to have that movement occurring frequently. And with any of these improvements, I didn't bring this up, but education is a key component of that, and just making sure that we're getting the word out on what these changes are. Not that everybody that's commuting through here is going to get that message, but it will cut down significantly on the people that are confused or not understanding what is happening.
Next, Roy Stevenson.
This all got started with Somerset Avenue, which was addressed as a special case, because unlike the other feeder streets, which tend to be straight, Somerset has got a lot of curves. And there was some accidents, several accidents, and the residents presented a case that the egress was unsafe. And for a time, we actually closed Somerset, made it a dead end. And of course, that made people on Somerset quite happy because they had no more cut-through traffic at all. But the flow-through then, as we all know, then goes to Bishop and Corrigan. So the compromise was open up Somerset. We've done steps to improve the safety with barriers and with the improvement you made at the entrance to Somerset. And then we put the no right turns on Bishops and Corrigan. And even with those no right turns, there is still cut-through traffic. The police can't arrest everybody. I talked to Captain Hertow quite a bit, and she does her best with the resources she has to enforce those no-turn
Chief Hertow.
Chief Hertow, sorry. But you can't catch everybody. But in any case, the result of that is now the folks on the south side of the street have said, hey, they're getting some relief. What about us? And again, I feel if you're going to do it, it wouldn't be fair to just fix Lee. That's going to go to Captains. And if you just fix Lee and Captains, it goes to Halsey. If you're going to do one, you got to do all. And as you stated, that's just going to cause it to flow someplace else. The traffic's like water. It's going to go to Hill. It's going to go to First Neck. It's going to go to Moses. It's going to go to McGee. But here's my question for you. If you actually hadn't the laws making no left turns on all those streets, at what point does Waze begin to recognize that I can't send people that way because they're not going to be allowed to make a left turn? It's illegal. And would that have any hope of being a benefit in terms of reducing the people that are sent through the village using Waze? I mean, I know not everybody uses Waze. Once they learn a shortcut, they don't have to look at their phone anymore, but
so just so I understand your question, you're asking if we incorporated additional turn restrictions, would it deter folks
on all the three south side streets?
Yeah. So to your point, I think Waze is just using algorithms to determine the fastest route to get to their destination. It will recognize restrictions on the turns as it does at Somerset and Bishops. So that will occur wherever we additionally install these over time. And Waze will find other ways to redirect them. But to your point, the village can't, legally the village can't be closed through traffic. Their vehicles are allowed to come through here and use Hill Street or any of the other public streets, barring commercial restrictions that have been enacted on a lot of these residential roads. So Waze will send them, and by the way, Waze doesn't differentiate between commercial vehicles. So if your commercial vehicle may send you down an illegal roadway, either way. But it would still send you down First Neck or any of those other roadways if it's going to save you the 20 seconds or what have you, as opposed to going down 39. And that's why I mentioned before, I think that the real fix to this is to find a solution on CR 39 to get more of those vehicles away from the village. Because even if you make Hill Street flow better, you're going to get more of that through traffic coming downhill because Waze is going to tell them now that Hill Street is faster. So it's almost like a catch-22. don't know if that answers
Okay.
your question.
You did, I mean, my point is that maybe the solution isn't to make Hill Street flow better, it's to make it flow worse. So that Waze doesn't send people down Hill Street, because there's nothing to be gained by going that way. You would just might as well stay on 39.
Speed limit back down to 20 miles an hour.
Okay, wait, we can't have people from the audience shouting out stuff.
So you could, I mean, I don't know that the condition on Hill Street is all that favorable now. That's why
Right.
folks are using those
Right.
side streets.
No, I get it.
And if you add the restrictions on there, they're still going to make their way over there because of the condition on 39. So at some point, those cars are going to merge onto Hill Street and try to take that through, because it's slow on 39, and even if it's slow on Hill Street, they're still going to go that route. So it's, again, there's really no way to stop those cars physically from coming through the village.
There's been, just one other question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's even legal, but there's been some talk about, as long as it's got to be bad, can we spread the burden? And several people have written letters saying, on Mondays you can go down Halsey Neck, and on Tuesdays you can go down Captain's Neck, and on Wednesdays you go down Lee's. So at least, but the other days you can't go down at all. It's no turns. And so one day a week, or every third day, you would have a very bad traffic on your street, but at least the two others, you'd be better. Would that be legal? I mean, I know there'd be huge enforcement issues for our police department, but would it be allowable?
I don't believe, I would have to confirm that on a temporary basis, but typically you're not allowed to close roadways to public travel, and except in the case of an emergency that's happening. So to say Monday is Captain's Neck, Tuesday is Lee, the enforcement, I think, would be challenging, and the signage would be confusing. So
I do
The-
think we
the-
could make the point that it's an emergency. I think we have an emergency. I mean, the fire guys can't get around, the ambulance guys, we have an emergency.
yeah, well, I'm not in a position to
Right.
determine whether this is an emergency or not, but I'm just stating that the only time you'd be able to do that is in the case of an emergency. And typically, recurring instances of traffic, no matter how bad they are, is not typically deemed an emergency. Maybe that's different in this scenario, but
Right.
from what I've seen, that is not the case.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Now, at this point, I guess we'll open it up to the public, and
I just want to go over a couple of ground rules. First, there's a lot of people that want to speak, so the 5-minute limit is going to be a hard 5 minutes. Secondly, if several people have already made the points you want to raise, please be succinct when you stand up to make yours. Also, lastly, you're addressing the village board. Oh, I'm sorry, can you hear me? You're addressing the village board, not the consultant or not the people sitting in the audience. So please remember to address them directly. So, okay.
okay. Thank you, Ryan. You get to sit down now. And sir, front row. You're first up.
Yeah, Ken Weinstein. I live on Fox Hollow, and I face the Fox Hollow Moses intersection. And I've seen when you remove the stop sign, when it's not bumper to bumper, it's a speedway. So you get both situations. You've also given up a revenue opportunity because the police used to sit right on Moses and catch people going through that stop sign. So, I don't know if that's successful. The only thing that really works is getting that traffic light on Moses and 39 to extend the time to pull traffic out of Moses.
I'm just going to make a quick comment. The intent of that, which has had some benefit, but I've heard from a number of your neighbors, by the way, and I have concerns about continuing the removal of those stop signs. But the primary intent was to change the dynamics at the intersection of Moses, Armand, and Pelham, which had become a very dangerous intersection with road rage incidents and fender benders, and for the few pedestrians and bicyclists or dog walkers going through, it became a really dangerous intersection just because the traffic was always backed up there, and everyone was getting very antsy to come from 3 other directions onto that street. The one thing I will say is, I've been on my bike to see this 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks, that intersection is significantly improved. So it met that objective, but it is an inconvenience for residents on Fox Hollow, and it's allowing speeding, especially in non-commuter hours, to come back up again. So
The one thing I would add,
You gotta stand up again, sir.
the one thing I would add is that with that crosswalk, you may consider putting a sidewalk from that crosswalk into the two entrances to Moses Park.
That's a good point. Thank you. Chief, did you want to say anything about Moses?
I'll be very brief. That stop sign was put there years ago to curb speeding, and that's not the point of placing stop signs on residential streets. And the reason why we did the pilot was because there was a log jam at Pelham, Armand, and Moses, and it was backing up all the way, usually from like 5:30 to about 6:45. It would back up, and that light at Moses, it's by Sunoco at McGee and County Road 39, it only allows 30 seconds for cars to make that left-hand turn. So removing that stop sign allowed traffic to move a little bit quicker. And what people do forget is there is a stop sign right before the railroad tracks. So cars are stopping. And we had radar officers there conducting radar on the off hours. And the highest speed that we're getting is 38 miles an hour. It goes from 28 to 38, 39 miles per hour. The speed limit is 25. But it's not in excess. And we do have one of those speed indicators up there, and we try to get the data off of it to show what the speeds were in the off hours, but it is broken, to my understanding, and Bob Hand is unable to retrieve that data. So Steve Phillips is working on getting a new one down there.
Yeah, actually, I just signed the purchase order
Good.
for 2. Yeah. Did you say 4? Okay, Mitchell.
Mayor, board members, and fellow residents, I live on Halsey Neck Lane, and I've been coming out here for 57 years, and I'm now a resident full-time, so 3 years here. A couple things I just wanted to say thank you for the review of this. We went through this last summer with the test pilot of the light, and some highlights as I was thinking about going to Cooper's yesterday and enjoying one of the most beautiful beaches that I've been going to since I was 3 was our street had a backup all the way to Ox Pastures when that light and that test was going. And as I was bicycle riding home and viewing the traffic very much on mine, getting ready for today's meeting, you have all these landscape trucks that are also double parked on the street. So as a bicyclist, I'm trying to get around them. I'm thinking to myself, if this Lee and Captain's Necks gets shut down, not only is there going to be a lineup all the way there, it's going to be disaster of anybody trying to get in and out of their house. The lines, thank you for that idea, was interesting, but who's going to enforce the lines? It's kind of like, don't block the grid.
Yeah.
So there's a grid in front of my house now. It's going to look beautiful, not. And what am I going to do about that? So there's nothing there. However, as I was thinking about this beautiful town that we live in, this island that we're on, we have a very similar situation to Aspen, which we've talked about. There's only one way in and there's one way out. Now, we talked about the traffic coming in is not as much the issue. It's always leaving for everybody trying to get up island, go west, and get home. If you look at what happens in Manhattan going into the Lincoln Tunnel, into the tunnel, rather Midtown Tunnel, and into the bridge, they take the 2 lanes and they make them 3 lanes. Now, I don't know if we've ever thought about whether it's 39 only or 39 and Hill Street. I know we have bicycle beautiful lanes that were just painted and road that was done, and thank you, the road is beautiful, and thank you for Halsey Neck Lane painting, but maybe there's a traffic between 4 and 6. We have 2 lanes exiting out, and and 1 lane coming into town. So you're helping the flow past the flashing lights up at the top where the reservation is, and at least gets out to Southampton College, and there's a traffic light to get onto 39 or out. Just an idea. I'm just trying to come up with stuff. I do like the ideas of more speeds, but I liked what you were saying, Roy, about, it's like water. It's going to have to go somewhere, so why not just open up all the roads again? I also like 25 miles an hour, if we can get down to that speed. At first, I didn't like it, but all of Manhattan is now down to 20 or even less. So what's wrong? No one's moving anyway. So we bring the speed down, we have safety, and what was a couple others, and I know that I've only got 5 minutes. I do really like what they did on First Neck and Hill Street, so thank you. I think that's been great. Flashing light has also helped, as I said, but I think putting us where we have no left turn in front is just going to cause chaos. And I think the real issue is those two funnels getting out of everybody trying to come up Island and out to go home that doesn't live in this beautiful area that we're in. So, how do we do it with cones? Is there an opportunity to do an experiment just to say 2 or 3 lanes out at 39 and 1 lane in? I don't know. Those are the ideas. I'm not a traffic specialist. I just don't want bumper-to-bumper traffic where I can't even pull in or pull out of my house or go bicycle riding or walking without worrying about getting hit. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Can I just remind everybody to state your name for the record?
Sure. Mitchell Caniff.
Pippa.
Pippa Gerard, 611 Hill Street. I have just 2 quick points tonight. One is everybody has great suggestions on whatever temporary things we're looking at. I think we have to accept we need real enforcement. We are going to have to do an additional tax to pay for the police to be at every single corner, if that's what it's going to be, because it doesn't work. I can tell you just from trying to get to my home every evening, what have you. The other point I had tonight is 20 years ago, a group was started called the East End Transportation Council, that with the mayors in the East End and Suffolk County and our local Congress people, all the way up to representatives from the governor's office, got together and met for 4 or 5 years trying to think about a big solution to traffic down the road that would incorporate everybody, i.e., don't everybody laugh at me, through eminent domain, take land on one side of the railroad tracks from Hampton Bays to Montauk. 2 lanes from 6 a.m. until noon every day going east, 2 lanes going west. It would take 20 years. It would cost a lot of money. But I think it would make me and a lot of the residents, not just in Southampton Village, but along the entire East End, South Fork here, feel a lot better about the temporary measures we're taking right now, knowing that there is a real plan in place. Maybe it can't be that, but I would like to hear from our traffic consultant and other people that there are real meetings taking place on a regular basis to try and address this. The traffic is not going to get less. We have more and more homes going up, more and more people here. And I don't know what the answer is, but I would really hope that you all are thinking and working with your counterparts and trying to get a real solution. Even if it's going to take 20 years, but it will help the rest of us feel better about what we're living through in the next 20 years with our temporary steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pippa.
And I would just like to make a comment. Trustee Simeone and I met 3 weeks ago now, with a couple of town representatives, a couple of the town council people. I agree, we need a regional task force on this, and it needs to have attention at both the county level and the state level. The South Fork provides an outsized per capita amount of sales tax and room tax revenue, occupancy tax revenue to the state and the county. We need to play our economic hand with them and say this is urgent. But I also don't agree that the best long-term plan is just building roadways or modifying them. We have to make better use of the railroad itself and shuttle bus systems. I wrote a piece on this a year ago, and I've spoken with a lot of people in this room and elsewhere. The culprit here is not development. Net development has been surprisingly modest. There's a lot of construction going on. Most of it is demolition and reconstruction of houses. The actual new housing units out here are not many, and they're occupied, most of them seasonally, or as second homes. So they're not generating what we might think of as normal traffic. But that highlights the issue. The culprit here is that we've had 20,000 or more housing units in the East End in the last 30 years that used to be owner-occupied by 1 to 2 members of the workforce who worked here locally. And those 20,000 houses had 25,000 or more members of the workforce. Their jobs are still here, they're just not here. And so we have, call it 25,000 people who have to get here to work every day for the jobs that used to be filled by locals. There are new jobs, so there's a few thousand jobs on top of that. And the real kicker is that the people who used to live in those houses full-time, in most cases, mowed their own lawn, they cleaned their own house. If they had a pool, they serviced their own pool. If they needed a bathroom repainted, they did it themselves on a weekend. And all of that work now is being done by people, by service companies, most of whose employees come from the West. So that adds another 5,000 to 8,000 cars a day to our roads, just that fact alone, just from those houses. So we've added, pick a number, it's at least 30,000, and Ryan, you may know or have data, as many as 40,000 additional vehicles a day in 30 years. We just have way too much volume than our roads were ever intended or designed for. And it's because of, anyone here has a second house? I started as a second homeowner. I now live and work here. But individually, none of us is to blame. Collectively, all of us who have displaced because the market prices end up displacing local workforce who can't afford the housing. Collectively, that's what's created our problem. That's the cause of the problem. Until we find a way to move a few thousand to 5,000 or more of those vehicles off the road by getting people onto trains or into carpools, we're shifting deck chairs on the Titanic.
I appreciate what you're saying, but we have to accept that's the way it is.
Yeah, but we do need a long-term plan. It needs to be regional, and we
Okay.
deserve some resources.
I saw you were raising your hand, so we'll go this way around the room. Thank you.
Hi, Jim Sanis. I am a resident of Hill Street. First of all, I'd like to make the point that Hill Street is a residential street. I heard somebody say we got to get it off the residential streets and onto Hill Street. Hill Street is a residential street. And the restrictions that are already in place are hugely burdensome to the people that live on Hill Street. If I'm at the driving range at 4 o'clock, I have to drive into the village and then stand in line for 45 minutes to get back to my house on Hill Street, even though it's about 3/4 of a mile from my house. So those no right turn signs are burdensome. And I heard other people say it, I think it's right, you're just going to keep moving things back by putting more and more restrictions on the turns. I'm not somebody who says I shouldn't have traffic on Hill Street because I chose to buy on Hill Street, but we all chose to buy on these streets and there was traffic on these streets. I don't move next to an airport and say they should close the airport down, right? There's people in East Hampton that are doing that. But on the other hand, we all have to share this burden. So I think that these turn restrictions are getting us nowhere. But if you're going to do them, you have to have a way where people on Hill Street can get from the Stop and Shop to their house at 6 o'clock in less than an hour, okay? Yeah. And it is difficult, frankly, for me. The long-term solution is a highway. It is a bypass. I actually have a letter in the press. It has to be done. And unfortunately, I had this argument with Jesse Warren years ago. He said, well, we're just the village. We can't do anything about it. I think that that's wrong. I think you, as the leaders of this village, because we are the people that suffer the problem. By the time you get out to Bridgehampton, things have opened up. It's the problem, the bottleneck is here, and we're the ones who suffer. And the more you close down these side streets, all you're going to do is back the traffic up into the village, and you're not going to be able to get down Job's Lane. You're not going to be able to come in Hampton Roads, and it's just going to make things worse and worse and worse. But I do like what Trustee Stevenson said, which is, the mistake was to put that blinking light in there. We want to make Hill Street not the option. We want to force people up into County Road 39, and the interim solution is to do things on County Road 39. Traffic circles, there's a couple of traffic circles, take out the dead man's lane and you have to go around a circle and only make right turns. There are ways that can be done. If I can think of them, certainly these traffic experts can think of them. So I think the solutions are make Hill Street not a viable option for people, or as viable of an option, and push the traffic up to County Road 39, and for you as our leaders to push the town and the county, because everybody's doing this and saying it's not my fault, it's the county's fault, it's the state's fault, the state road. You've got to build that political consensus to get this done and get it done soon, because there's no way these traffic signs are going to solve our problem. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Who else in the back here, ma'am? William, you'll be next. Yeah, please come forward.
Good evening. Oops. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Elma Hawkins. I'm a permanent resident of the village of Southampton, and I live on Fox Hollow Lane. First of all, thank you very much to the trustees for your dedicated efforts to address the ongoing traffic congestion in our village. I would like to address some of the questions or statements that were raised earlier on, with which I disagree. I want to talk quickly about the decision to remove the stop sign at Fox Hollow in an effort to alleviate the traffic pileup at Armand, Pelham, and Moses Lane. While I fully acknowledge that the backup at this intersection is a genuine concern, it is a localized issue, roughly 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. That totals 10 hours weekly. In trying to solve this 10-hour challenge, however, we have inadvertently created a continuous hazard that affects our neighborhood 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 168 hours a week. Since the removal of the stop sign, Moses Lane has essentially turned into a speedway, and it really has. A few days ago, while attempting to cross over to Moses Park, I had to wait for 17 cars to pass before a single driver stopped to let me cross the street. The exact same hazard greeted me the following day. While a few mindful drivers are still pausing out of habit, the overall traffic flow has become unsafe. Though I appreciate the installation of the new speed limit signs, the signs alone cannot enforce caution when no one is watching. From my kitchen windows and my office windows, which look directly onto Moses Lane, I observe cars speeding at all hours. Even worse is the middle of the night screeching of tires, as was last night, has become a disturbing routine for those of us living nearby. Moses Lane is not a high-capacity thoroughfare like Hill Street. Sorry. It is a narrow neighborhood road, home to families, seniors like me, and a beloved park where children play daily. Those of us who live along Moses and Fox Hollow are deeply invested in our neighborhood's safety and well-being. We understand that traffic management requires compromises, and we are more willing to bear our fair share of it. However, living with a compromised quality of life and heightened safety risks 24 hours a day is simply unsustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. William.
William McClanahan, resident of Lee Avenue. I've spoken here many times, and we've listened to all these different opinions, and we all know that the point of this meeting was to address the tactical issues south of Hill on the western side of town. And it's something that we on Lee Avenue have been pushing and asking for some assistance on for over 4 years. I enjoyed the rich irony of someone from Halsey experiencing once, I guess for 2 weeks, what we experience every single night, and feeling quite comfortable that if we don't make a change, he will continue to enjoy a quiet, empty street while we experience every night what he experienced for 2 weeks. His street, there are differences among these streets. Lee is a local street. Captain is designated as a local street. Hill, unfortunately, is designated as a collector street. Not Hill, sorry, Halsey. And Hill Street is a arterial street. The town was set up that way at a time when there wasn't this traffic, maybe with the understanding that there would be someday. Halsey Neck Lane is a 26-foot wide street. Lee Avenue, as we all know, is 18 feet wide at its narrowest. It's 21 feet wide at its widest. It wasn't set up for this, so I'm not asking to put the traffic to Halsey. I'm not here to say let's just, ignore the problem, which I think what Ryan seems to be saying is, hey, there's nothing we can do for a situation that was resolved on Somerset. I would say the situation on Hill is equally difficult, potentially dangerous. And so I just ask the board to continue to pursue a solution. My vote would be choice 6 among Ryan's choices. Give it a try. Don't give up. We've put too much effort into all of this just to walk away and say the incumbent situation is what we should have. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Why don't we go to the back of the room, sir? Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, trustees, and community members, I think I live on Hill Street as well, and I hear everybody's pain. And I appreciate what you said, sir, about the probable cause of why this has happened. I've lived here for many years, and this has just gotten progressively worse. this may sound a little bit outrageous, but over the last few weeks, I was thinking, what do we have here that's not going to be cost prohibitive that may allow us to minimize or reduce this traffic, which you explained quite accurately is related to some demographic issues and retailers and obviously vendors and so forth. Has anybody ever considered the idea of taking advantage of the beach passes, what we use for rental people and for residences? That would be a ticket to get in and out of the village. But the retailers and all the other people that are traveling through here, commuting through here, perhaps on their way further out east, they have to park in an area up around Tuckahoe, much like we did during the golf tournament. That system seemed to work in transporting visitors to the U.S. Open quite well, I thought. Could we consider that kind of an option where there is a place where people could park that work in town, including hospital workers, and the only people that can access the village are people that live here or that rent here? Obviously, we've got to consider the landscapers and so on, which was brought up by somebody earlier, but that might reduce some of this volume to some extent, wouldn't be cost prohibitive, and we just have to have a daily bus route that would commute people from the parking spot to center of town that would travel every 30 minutes, much like they did with the golf. It's just a thought. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Robert Quigley, Quigle.
Hill Street.
One principle, I'm going to ask for the village attorney to just back me up on this. We can't restrict the type of traffic that goes on any of our streets, unfortunately. The only one that's easily available to us is to say no trucks over 10 tons except local deliveries. That's the one that's easily available to us. But I also wanted to say, I'm going to tie it to the comment about a regional solution and a long-term solution. One of the things I discussed with the town council people that I would like to push on a regional basis is trying to find a place for a regional transportation center, perhaps back at Gabreski Airport, perhaps at the end of the divided highway, where we have additional bus service from there, where we have the ability to carpool and ride share from there, and wherever that is located from there on east, the 2 lanes of the highway during commuter hours are HOV lane for one of them, buses and HOV, three or more people per car, and another one is 1 or 2 people per car. And let the market then figure out from there how to best take advantage of that to minimize their time. I don't know exactly how feasible the principle is there. The land is available, but it's going to take coordination among all the different levels, county, town, state, to make something like that happen, although it shouldn't be that cost prohibitive. But to me, this is a kind of longer-term regional proposal we need to be thinking about, and creating a carpool culture and a ride-sharing culture as much as possible.
Okay, there was another gentleman in the back, I think, that raised their hand. Am I right? Or what lady? I'm sorry. Carol?
Good evening, everyone. So Somerset, I'm Carol Zacharias on Somerset Avenue in Southampton Village. I'm not here really to talk to you all about some of the issues that have already been discussed. I am here, though, to talk to the new trustees. So we have been down the road, if you will, on Somerset Avenue as to what to do before we got to the stops, no right turn sign. I would need to share with you the issue because it's really not so much about traffic. It is about people getting hit and other things. It's a safety issue. So let me explain. Like Roscoe Development south of Hill Street, like the potato field development in the eastern portion of our village, Somerset Avenue and Pleasant was designed to be a closed-loop, private residential neighborhood. If you go to the building department and pull the plans, you'll see the entrance was off Hill Street. You circle up and around Somerset, turning around Pleasant, and go right back down on Hill Street. What did that mean? That meant that we have these radical 90-degree turns in the neighborhood, if you will. So what happened? When it was called the Broad Lawns Development. When the Broad Lawns Development came before this Board of Trustees for a vote, 4 trustees voted to approve the Broad Lawn Development. The vote and the notes are attached to my letter. They voted to approve. 1 abstained, Trustee Munn. Trustee Munn said, no, I want this connected through to McGee. And for that reason, the developer for Broadlawns went back to the drawing board and just stuck this weird squiggly little road that goes up on the northern portion of Somerset and connects to McGee. That's how we got the hook. That created a straight thoroughfare. The problem is the developer went back, he created that roadway, and the Board of Trustees voted on it. They made a terrible decision because they approved it. Why is it a terrible decision? We have 20 houses on our street, Somerset, along that roadway between McGee and Hill Street. Unfortunately, we have seen 16 accidents in recent years. That's a lot of accidents for 22 houses. 8 crashes, 4 rollover crashes, 3 vehicles in our front yards, not on the berm, actually in our front yards, and 1 pedestrian was struck horribly and ended up in the intensive care unit, as many of you know. I'll leave it at that. Photos of some of the accidents are attached to my letter, but you get the idea. The point is, 0.3 of a mile, 22 houses, 16 accidents. This is an accident problem. It is a safety issue for those of us who live there. So what happened? I want to hit upon that briefly. We came before this Board of Trustees starting in 2022. We submitted requests. During that time, between 22 and 23, they did several traffic studies. They submitted the traffic studies. We discussed the traffic studies. They did pilots, just as you're doing now. We talked about the pilots. We discussed what to do as a result of the pilots. We've had all kinds of different suggestions, including just as you're talking about now. Dead-end it. Bring it back to the original design, i.e. closed loop, because they failed to straighten the street, and so we have a defective planning design. Nope, can't do that for the reasons you've discussed. How about making that north piece one way, either north or south? Nope, can't do that for reasons that you've discussed. All right, we went through that and about 10 other options we could go through. The bottom line is, and the traffic experts and so on and so forth weighed in, the bottom line is, in March of 2023, the board and the traffic expert said, and by the way, the neighbors all weighed in. We had people in the south, people in the north, everybody weighed in. So it was very open, it was public, and we were trying to all figure this out together. By March, it was decided. The Board of Trustees and the traffic advisor consultants said, one way, no, I wish, they said no right turns, but only 4 to 7 p.m., 3 to 7 p.m., because that's when it's worse and the people are going crazy. So there is how we ended up with this. Why does this matter? It matters because of one thing. It worked. Before the raised area was put in by McGee, before more recently that ugly barrier was put in, God bless him, over, on the side by one of the curves, the traffic accidents were calming down. We do not have 16 more accidents. By now we should have had 8 more, if you look at the averages. We don't have them. It was forcing people, I suppose, to be more careful, to stop, to or not go, whatever. But bottom line is, we still have rows of cars on our street sitting there. When I'm having a glass of wine with my neighbor, I can see it. Oh, I'll be quiet now, sorry. We still have the traffic. We don't have the accidents. So do us a favor, please, don't remove the sign. Not because of traffic, but because I don't want to get hit. We don't want people in the emergency room, and we don't need 16 more accidents. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Who else would like to speak here? Wait, we have Sir. Yeah, go, come.
And then Zoom.
Yeah, we'll get there, but I wanted to finish the room first.
Hi, Steve Markov, Lee Avenue resident. As you all know, we were invited in back in June to share our headaches, our fears of living on Lee Avenue. This was all initiated by Trustee Zanotti, your former trustee. Many of you were part of those meetings, as was the chief, our DPW leadership, as well as Ryan from VHB. And here we are 2 months later with a consultant coming in saying, here's 7 ideas. None of them are any good. Don't know what else to tell you. I ran and owned a consulting agency for 10 years. If I had done that once, I would have been fired on the spot. I urge you to take some leadership here, force this organization to come back with a layered solution. It isn't one answer, it's layered. It's a learning process. And if we don't do that, we'll be back here every month tormenting you. But the bigger issue is we'll continue to live in an unsafe environment, and that has to be fixed. So I urge you, work with VHB, have them put a comprehensive plan in place and then vote on it, trial it, learn from it, and solve problems. I keep hearing there is no solution. I don't agree with that. Trustee Stevenson said, let's make it so miserable they don't come into the village. There is an option there. There is a law of diminishing returns. Eventually, people will stop coming in if it's not quicker than CR 39. But we won't know that until we try to trial this and learn from that. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, we have someone else who hasn't spoken yet, so we have two ladies over here. I'm going to have to defer to them first. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not a trustee because I
And
don't
you're
like
Allison
talking.
Fagan of Halsey
Yes.
Neck Lane.
So
Yeah.
I am, good evening, I'm Allison Fagan and I live on Halsey Neck Lane. Thank you, trustees. I have already written a detailed letter, so I will just highlight a few points. First, my preference would be to have no turn restrictions on Hill Street, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So second, in the 2022 Neil Pope traffic assessment, an evaluation was made of the traffic congestion on Hill Street. The report concluded that one significant cause of Hill Street congestion was cut-through traffic coming from Halsey Neck, Captain's Neck, and Lee Avenue, all three. The same report recommended a mitigation measure that would prohibit northbound left turns from Lee Avenue, Captain's Neck, and Halsey Neck Lane. 2, another traffic study dated March 8th, 2023 made a significant point stating, I'm just going to quote it, based on the review of this data, it can be seen that a significant amount of vehicles are using these village roads as cut-through roads, and closing any one of those roads or these roads will not eliminate the cut-through traffic, but just move the cut-through traffic to the next available road, end quote. Illustrating this very point are our 2 traffic pilot programs in 2024 and 2025, where left turns were prohibited on Lee and Captain's Neck. The data from the update presentation after the pilot clearly showed the choking traffic burden that was passed on to Halsey Neck from its western neighbors due to the 2025 pilot. Further, I'd like to clarify some misconceptions I've heard about why Halsey Neck Lane cannot have a left turn restriction. The first one is that we are an evacuation route. That is simply not true. I have really researched this. I've talked to council. Halsey Neck is a feeder street to the evacuation corridors, as are all the residential streets south of Hill. We're not the sole one, and actually that would be kind of dangerous if we were. 2, I've heard that we are an emergency access route to the beach. That is true. But then, hence, why would the trustees clog Halsey Neck Lane with all the commuter traffic, thus creating a very problematic situation for emergency vehicles trying to get through? 3, I've heard that Halsey Neck is wider than Lee and Captain's Neck. That is misleading. We are only about 5 feet wider than Lee Avenue in most of the street. Certainly not wide enough to handle the.
Hey, wait, we can't have people.
Well, that's what I got from researching it. But we're not wide enough to handle the incredible shift of traffic being contemplated tonight. We're wider, but not wide enough. And an earlier study even showed that we were too narrow to add a bike lane. We have to have a shallow or a sharing something, but we couldn't have a dedicated a bike lane. In closing, please follow the data and earlier traffic assessments and make a village decision that shares the traffic burden. If a new traffic pilot limiting left turns is to be conducted, don't favor one street over the other. Institute left turn prohibitions for Lee, Captain's Neck, and Halsey Neck. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie, did you want to speak?
She said it all.
Okay, well then you're not compelled to have to speak. Yeah.
Catherine Patterson. Yes, that is still my legal name, guys. I've only been married 47 years. You don't know if it's going to work.
I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah, I live on Halsey Neck, and I just wanted to raise a couple of things just in rebuttal to some of the comments that have been made. First, there's no delicious irony out there. I'm sorry to say that to William. I've known him his whole life. If you look at the results of a 2025 October THP traffic update, where they actually did a count over the 3 weeks. 2 weeks when Lee and Captain's Neck were closed to left-hand turns, and the third week when all three remained open. Week number 1, Hill Street had 846 vehicles pass between 3 and 4 p.m. That's only 1 hour in the commuting line. The number that tried to turn left off of Lee, 2. The number that tried to turn left off of Captain's Neck, 2. The number that tried to turn left off of Halsey Neck, 146. Second week, the number that were counted going downhill, 872. The number that tried to turn left off of Lee, 0. The number that tried to turn left off of Captain's Neck, 0. The number that tried to turn left, and I assume attempted to turn left out of Halsey Neck, 148. Okay, so that really that confirms what the traffic consultant has said, that you shut down 2 streets and it's just going to move. I mean, it's like moving water, as Trustee Stevenson said. Third week, that was when the restrictions were removed. So we went back to the unacceptable normal we have now. 895 vehicles on Hill Street, 96 trying to turn left off of Lee. That's very, very bad for residents of Lee. 42 trying to turn left off of Captain's Neck. 87 trying to turn left off of Halsey Neck. Now, I don't know who those 87 were. I do know that yesterday, when I was trying to get my grandson to soccer practice, and when all 3 streets were open at 4:30, the good news is that I could get out of my driveway because I live on the west side of Halsey Neck. People who lived on the east side of Halsey Neck weren't quite as lucky because their traffic was backed up, I would say 3/4 of the way to Ox Pasture. It wasn't as bad as it can be, but it was there. Because, traffic has to find something, has to find a space. And the wait was, I suspect, fairly significant. Fortunately, I had to turn right and go south. And by the time I came back, which was a couple of hours later, the traffic had somewhat abated. So I can't tell you anecdotally that at 6 o'clock, we had gridlock as opposed to whether Lee did. I don't know if anybody on Lee was around at 6 o'clock yesterday who could tell me otherwise. Okay. Right. I'm just saying that the pain has to be shared. The pain is already being suffered elsewhere. Come on. How many times? How many? Yeah.
We can't have the back and forth.
Okay.
Piece
Yeah, the
with
back and
audience.
forth. Let's see. There was a 2022 comprehensive plan. I wanted to address the Collector Street issue. The comprehensive plan quotes, "Many local streets have the physical and land use characteristics of residential streets, yet have to function as collector streets because of their layout and connections to the roadway system. Halsey Neck Lane is another route they were mentioning First Neck first. Halsey Neck Lane is another route heavily used by vehicles to travel between Hill Street and the beach. That plan also highlighted that Halsey Neck is frequently used by bikers heading to and from the beach. Because we are the westernmost access and egress point from the beach, we are the ones that get virtually all of the traffic from beaches, including Cooper's Beach, but certainly the beaches west of Cooper's Beach. And those people, and they're pedestrians and cyclists and drivers, tend to leave at just about the same time as all of the commuter traffic. And we have always gotten that. That's something we've learned to live with. It's something that I suspect is priced into land values at Halsey Neck. I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying that if... Thank you. And so to say that we're a collector street, we are not. And when the change was made to restrict right-hand lanes north of Hill Street, it worked beautifully for the roads north of Hill Street, or worked adequately, I should say. But it simply transferred the problem to south of Hill Street.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. Sir, I've got still some people who haven't spoken yet. Sir, in the back. Yeah.
Good afternoon, or good evening. David Gorton, 35 Lee Avenue, and that's right on the corner of Hill Street and Lee Avenue, so I kind of get the best of both worlds in that regard. I just want to make a couple of quick points that reiterate a few things that have been said. First is, I despite living at that intersection, I couldn't agree more that for this to be explored further really has to be a comprehensive solution that helps people on Lee Avenue, on Captain's Neck, and also on Halsey. I think absent anything that addresses these people's concerns would really fall short. I would really be curious to see what happens when left turns are restrictions are put into place at all three of those streets, and to see the reduction in cars zooming down Ox Pasture and endangering everybody on all three of those streets, and frankly also on First Neck. I mean, I feel bad for those folks that have to deal with people ripping to the south on First Neck. But it's only a matter of time before there's a tragedy with somebody speeding and cutting through on Ox Pasture, and that impacts everybody in the western edge of the village south of Hill Street. Secondly, I would say if we're going to put these restrictions in place, and I think the lady who talked about how successful the right turns have been on Somerset deserves real attention and credibility. But if we're going to put these restrictions in place, they have to be joined with technology. And I would really, really encourage the board to continue to push on the state to do whatever it takes to put cameras in place, because I see people making right turns on Somerset, and it infuriates me because they're simply cutting in line and they're endangering the folks on Somerset, and all of those people who are patient and waiting in line on Hill Street, they're just cutting in front of them. And without having technology and cameras in place, they're going to continue to do that. And so if we're going to put a left turn restriction on those three streets, which I think we should, it's not fair to burden the police, but technology will help. If people know that they're going to get ticketed or warned, it will, but you have to push on that. And I just can't accept that the state has said no or the county has said no. Like, you go in New York City, it's everywhere. Like, it can be done if there's a political will to do it. And so I really implore you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we're going to lose our superintendent of public works because today is his birthday, and he has to meet his wife and daughters. But I just wanted to know if Steve Phillips has anything you'd like to say before you leave.
I live in a village. I live in North Sea. Same issue.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
All right. Thank you. Happy birthday. Who else was in the back? Sorry, ma'am. Yeah.
My name's Kim Agaloff, and I'm at 55
Could you
Lee
use the
Ave.
microphone? Sorry. Yeah, thank you.
I'm at 50. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
55 Lee Ave, and so we're the first house, the second driveway from Hetty Creek. And I have two quick items and just another just concrete information that we're really lucky that we haven't had an injury on our street. On Thursday of last week, well, first of all, our mailbox, and I don't really care about this, but it's projected out because of the curb there is the tightest part of 55 Lee, and it's been knocked down 5-6 times. Sorry, I just saw, I'm a little nervous. 5-6 times, and I just keep putting reflectors, and even somebody hit it last week and put a new reflector in front of it. So it's not a safety issue in and of itself, but it falls into the street, and people are coming up on the curve. You know, it's just, and my office is on the second floor, so I really see all of this. Thursday, we're in traffic. I had about 5 or 6 last Thursday at 4:30. It was building up. The traffic was building up. About a 4-year-old little girl was on the right, and she's selling lemonade. She's taking advantage of the traffic for her business opportunity. And her older sister was next to her. So we stopped, rolled down the window. My husband was on the guest side. And how much is your lemonade? And she said, it's $1. So this is a 30-second transaction. There were spaces for 5 or 6 cars in front of me before we were getting built up. And 5 cars just whipped around me, could not wait. And I was trying to put my arm out. They were just kept whipping around. And there's this little girl. And, I just think it's really dangerous. Because on Lee, people drive in the middle. They don't drive on the right side. And I don't know. So thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Singer, 451 Hill Street. I am here to, first of all, ask for a pilot program, at least with actually no right or left turns onto Hill Street. I want something that's going to, solve. I think that the entire west side of the village is in this together. Whether you like it or not, like, people are trying to get to Hill Street, and we're talking about the south side now, but the north side is in the same position. We are all in a bad position, north and south of Hill Street, and Hill Street has to get together. And if we don't all get together, and if we're not all aligned, nothing is going to happen. And I'm under no disillusion. I'm not deranged. I know that Hill Street is the, residential exit of the village, right? But it is lined with houses, and all of us have invested in Hill Street, and we all care about it. And a lot of us have little children who are trying to safely cross Hill Street without being killed. So I'm just asking that Hill Street is treated like all the other streets in the village. There's no reason that Hill Street is not 25 miles an hour. I know that it was raised to 30 to get people out in the evening, but people are going 5 miles an hour in the evening, so it's irrelevant. And I don't see why there's not a stop sign or two on Hill Street. Like First Neck Lane, where First Neck Lane meets Great Plains, there's now a stop sign because Great Plains is a busy street. Okay, it's not a 4-way cross sign. South Main has stop signs at Foster Crossing and Toilsome when there's no other street on the other side. So on the east side of South Main and Toilsome, there's a stop sign. On the east side of South Main, Foster Crossing, there's a stop sign. Why don't we have a stop sign at Halsey Neck or Lee or Captain's Neck just to slow the traffic down? That's treating Hill Street like the residential street that it is. I'm not asking for less traffic. I'm not on Hill Street because I know that that's not going to happen, and I accept that. I'm not delusional, but I still don't understand why it's not treated like other village streets. And I'm all for a pilot program, at least restricting turns onto Hill Street, period, from the north and from the south between 3:30 and 7. I think that would be a fair thing to try. I mean, I was on West Prospect yesterday, and there were little kids having lemonade stand, adorable, and cars were ripping at 45 miles an hour. Like, we're all residential streets, guys. There are not like giant Home Depots on any of our streets. We deserve to have a residential feel to our neighborhood. And I agree with technology because it's so overwhelming for the police. And again, I think I know I've said, but I love the police. They came over to my house. The dogs were barking on late the other night, and I'm so appreciative of everything. But it's just a problem that's bigger than all of us. But I think if we find a solution that works for West Prospect and Halsey Neck, I think this is in our ability. And these are all village streets that we're talking about. These are not town streets. These are not county roads. They're village streets, and they should all be treated with the same respect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeff Molesky on 121 Lee Avenue. So many great comments here tonight, and this is not necessarily the I think the easiest solution. Obviously, we've been talking to y'all for 4 years. It feels like you all, the trustees and our mayor, I think you're at a point where you need to start making some innovative decisions. It doesn't feel like it's good enough. I feel like you're hearing this from everybody. It's good enough just to say continue as is. There's absolutely long-term solutions that we all want to be, they're great. Rob, I know you talk a lot about long-term solutions. I feel like we are at a point where we have to do something in parallel today. It's just not safe. And I think what happened was a lot of this traffic started on Lee, because it's the most western, south of Hill Street. I know there's the north of Hill Streets as well. And we're continuing to see how now that's turning the corner, it's going down Ox. Now it's feeding up Captains. It even goes past Captains. It's going up Ox. It's going to address Halsey Neck residents as much, I think, as Captains and Lee very shortly. We have to act now. And I don't understand why it feels like there's almost some complacency where people can just go away and then, yep, we'll let that calm down and then we'll be here again next season. Let's take this by. Let's just get our arms around this and really, it's a test of leadership. And do something for the residents. It feels like there's a lot of consideration for people who are cutting through versus people who live here and want. We pay dearly property taxes to the village of Southampton. I'm not sure why we're not prioritized, quite frankly. We have to be honest with ourselves. Cut through is something that's a reality. However, put the priority against the residents in this village, in the neighborhood, north and south of Hill. And there's innovative ways that we've talked about addressing that, and I'm a little concerned that we didn't even have a recommendation here from our consultant. I just have to echo, I've been a consultant for years. If you show up at a meeting like this and you don't have a point of view, it's concerning. It really is concerning. So if that's not working, find somebody that can partner with us and really crack this open. I feel like there's a number of people in this room on Halsey, north of Hill, on Captains, Ox, on Lee. If we came together, I tell you, we could find a solution. And I'm asking Mayor Manger and the board here, the trustees, I mean, some of the comments that you made, Roy Stevenson, tonight, yes, that's what we need. We need somebody that's thinking about things a little out of the box. And we can't be scared of saying no left turns on Lee, Captains, and Halsey. We can't be scared of that. Why don't we try it? Why can't we try that and see what happens? There's going to be a law of diminishing returns. And the cut-through traffic will stop coming south, going through our beautiful neighborhood just to go back up to Hill and out. It's going to force, it's going to be a little congested on Hill for a bit, but it eventually will get to a point where they're going to say it's not worth it. And we have to control and protect what's in our control, and that's the village. So, again, it's a public safety issue. It really is. On Lee Avenue, it's downright scary every night. Every night, it's scary. The only relief we ever get is when it rains because the workers, they're not out and about. But other than that, it's treacherous. It's really, really scary. And I hope you all understand that. It's a really narrow street. And this is not just to create a case for Lee. It's to create a case for our village, our Western village, which we are all so proud of and we love. We're asking you guys, please take some action and help us.
Thank you. Alan Glatt.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees, and most importantly, thank you, police. I live on Captain's Neck, and I want to tell you, I don't really notice traffic until I walk out my front door, where it's bumper to bumper, a music fest. But talk about safety. I think we made a lot of great or looking at solutions. But I made a left out of my driveway going towards the beach, and it became a 2-lane towards Hill Street, where I was almost hit head-on, making a left-hand turn. Yeah. That didn't happen once. It didn't happen twice, but it happened a third time this week. You know, I have young drivers coming out of my driveway. They know to turn left. The car that was coming in the opposite direction facing me did not yield, forcing me on my neighbor's westbound lawn. This is a danger. I think the points of making no left turns will help our neighbors on Hill Street. It will, because you will not have traffic turning onto Hill Street. Hill Street will move a little better, and you will not have backup on Lee. You will not have backup on Lee Avenue, Captain's Neck, or Halsey Neck. We have to try it, and I think we have to add one other element to this. We need to take our part-time ticketing staff that is on Main Street in the summer And we need to put them on the 3 intersections to relieve the police force, but to have vigilance so we don't have 2 lanes of traffic because people want to beat the traffic. We have kids on bikes. It is not safe to ride a bike in the village. It's not safe to drive in the village between 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the afternoon. And so we do need to implement something. I thank you for thinking about this. We need to come up with a solution today. Thank you.
All right, we were going to maybe hear if there was anyone on Zoom, because
Just a
30
comment.
seconds for Trustee Coburn. Since Stony Brook University controls the hospital and the university, is parking available at the university? Have them run a shuttle bus every 15 minutes through the village, collecting their employees and delivering them to a parking lot outside the village.
Thank you.
Just a
Because
quick
you
point
created
on.
an accommodation for parking at a recent trustees meeting.
Yeah.
We'll use that as leverage.
Yeah. Peter?
Just a quick point on the TCOs. TCOs cannot enforce moving violations. So unfortunately, putting those junior officers out into the intersections, they could be a presence, but they wouldn't have any enforcement powers. Okay.
All right,
That's fine. I just wanted to clarify.
Let's hear from Peter here.
Good evening, Peter Suckach from 56 Halsey Neck Lane. I think we've all are painfully coming to the conclusion that restricting traffic flow is not the answer, at least in the near term, without a comprehensive plan. Moving traffic from Lee and Captains to Halsey and Neck, although I'm very sympathetic to our friends and neighbors there, is not the solution to increase the traffic there by 100 or 200%. And it seems that legally, there's not a way to restrict traffic flow going into the village areas all the way from Watermill. So in the near term, without a comprehensive plan, I would imagine the only solution is to expedite traffic through the village and take some of the restrictions away from the north side, not being able to turn right. Although having heard the problems that Somerset has experienced, one starts to wonder. But having traffic police at these junctions at Somerset and Corrigan's and Halsey and Lee and Captains and shuffling traffic, trying to get them move, get rid of the blinking light for a while or be able to turn it off, have the other light by the college, the former college, stay green for a longer period of time. Because once you get there, it starts flowing. Mm-hmm. But without a comprehensive plan, pushing the traffic to Halsey Neck is not the answer. But okay. If we could restrict traffic in other ways coming into the village areas, which it seems like legally is not possible, although maybe there's other creative ways of doing it, that seems to be the only solution before we really find a bigger solution of deterring traffic from coming. Because I dare to think what's going to happen 10 years from now if we don't address this problem in a big way. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, we'll go to Mr. Cardinale, and then I'm Sage, I'm curious who's on Zoom. Okay, all right, so we'll do this, and then we'll move to some Zoom folks.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you. I have a solution. I have a solution. Well, I do want to address Trustee Stevenson. And I spoke as previous meetings, but Ms. Bernstein wasn't here. I spoke to engineers up in the Cornell Roads program. It's a federally funded program. They have engineers, and they study all our roads. They have access to all the data on all our streets, what the traffic is, all statistics. You don't have to hire traffic consultants to get that. It's accessible. But what they said is what he said. You have to make the village not desirable for cut-through traffic. So how do you do that? It's either by speed bumps or stop signs, but I think the simplest solution is not putting flashing lights that we have to get permission from the state or the county, and then we have to get a power line to it. Just put 3 stop signs, 3 restrictive signs, Halsey and Captains and Lee, and just match the north side streets. Do not take away the north side signs. I mean, there's enough evidence that they're doing what they're supposed to do. It's restricting. The people there are safer. So we should just do the same on the south side. Now, what is it going to do? It will push the flow like water to First Neck. We deal with it then, but we have to see a pilot program. and I agree with everyone, we have to try it. But when those other streets clog up and those residents come here, put restrictions maybe down the road on First Neck. But that's the unknown. We don't know what it's going to do. I think there always will be traffic, of course, on Hill Street. But it's what Mayor said at the last meeting. It's when people get to County Road 39 and Flying Point and Hampton Road, do I make a right? Do I go straight? It has to be, you know what? If I go through the village, it's a pain. I got no restrictions on certain streets. You know, there's offices there. And lower the speed limit on Hill, which brings me to my last point. Trustee Stevenson, Waze and the traffic apps. I don't know how the traffic consultant you hired does not know this. You notify them. We lowered the speed limit on Hill to 25. We put these 3 signs in. They update their database. Yes, it goes off algorithms, but just Google it. You notify the traffic apps that, hey, we're going to lower the speed limit. And what that's going to do, that's also going to delay the dumping of the cars down Hampton Road. Because Waze is going to know, hey, that's 25 miles per hour. But County Road 39 is doing 25, 30. It won't send them our way. So that kind of answers your question. You can, the village, or anyone can, we can notify them once we do these things. But I think at a minimum, I agree with lowering the speed limit and putting those traffic signs. Actually, one last point. Trustee Colbrown has brought up in the past, the ADU program. We have an accessory dwelling unit program. It's a failure. We don't have one applicant. East Hampton has applicants, Sag Harbor has applicants. And the ADU program for everyone is you rent out you get a CO, that your cottage, garage, pool house, it's a separate CO. And you can rent it legally. I mean, and there are people in our village that are grandfathered in. Most of my neighbors around me have the double CO and they can rent their back buildings. I can't. The neighbor to the west of me can't. But had we had that, you would create thousands of commuters that would rent cottages. I mean, there's so many people that live in these large houses that have accessory buildings. Just lift the restrictions. Allow homeowners to rent them.
We're working on it. We are.
Yeah. Because our program, not one person has applied, but I'm not just talking about the program where you get money. Just allow people that already have, you know.
I wish it were thousands. Unfortunately, it's not. In the village, it's probably dozens to 100 or so. It's not thousands.
Well, for thousands of people. So I have a cottage. I could put 3 people back there. A friend of mine in Sag Harbor did the AD program. She has 3 people in her back cottage, people that work for her. But I'm not allowed to rent mine. But anyway, that's another thing. But going back to 25 and the 3 signs, 100% support. But thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sage, who do we have on Zoom?
I got a hand so far, so I'll let him in.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure there'll be more. They're coming in.
Do you want to say anything? Do you want to say anything?
Hi, hello. Is the floor mine?
Yeah, could you speak up a little bit? We can't quite hear you.
Yes, please let me know. I'm calling from abroad. I might have a, not such a good line. I'm a resident of Lee Avenue, number 145. We've lived there for now nearly 2 decades. We're now permanent residents too. And, first of all, I wanted to remind everybody that what it might be we're discussing here really it's, to implement a pilot program, right? We are not here today, what I understood, to find permanent solutions. I think, like we have heard everybody, and obviously this is not just a problem of Lee, but it is a problem of safety for Lee. Lee, it's a very narrow street, as we have heard. It's only 18 feet at its widest point. We don't have pedestrian facilities. It is a street that is very difficult to manage if there was an emergency of any kind. And it cannot be that we do nothing, because doing nothing means that most of the traffic continues to go to the street. And it's not a question of, obviously, but we're all very in the pain of the traffic. It's really the question that we're making one of the smallest streets have the highest risk. I think that, I want to support the idea of doing a pilot program. The previous pilot program was flawed. There has been a lot of discussions, a lot of data, in support of that, and I think we need a real pilot that will, try to see what could be the outcome if we restricted left turns in Captains and Halsey. I understand that this will have, probably other issues of traffic, but regarding Hill Street, the traffic of Lee, Captains, and Halsey goes back to Hill Street. There's no difference. Every car that goes to Lee ends up in Hill Street.
Mhm.
Not only it stops, somebody has to make space for someone to come in from any of these streets. So I don't think that making these restrictions would, in the long run, actually have an impact on Hill Street traffic, because it's the same. All these cars go back there. And lastly, I also would like to support the proposal of reducing the speed on Hill Street to 25. I think that, as many other speakers have said, we do need to disincentivize the use of these federal roads instead of relying as much as we could. So I hope that we could refocus the meeting on trying to agree on a pilot program that will provide information that could then lead to decisions in one way or another in the future. But if we go and end up this meeting again in a stalemate and no decision, we're repeating again the same thing. That's my contribution. Thank you for this opportunity, and I hope we can find a solution that is good for the entire neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Sage, was there anyone else on Zoom? Okay. Sir. Yeah.
Hello, Mayor and board members and fellow residents. My name is David. I live at 414 Hill Street, and very interesting. My first time here at this meeting, and I've heard lots about it for a few years, and it sounds like after everything I've heard, everybody's frustrated. Everybody has, there's a lot of repeated ideas. Lower the speed limit back on Hill Street to 25, signs on Lee, Captain's Neck, and Halsey Neck Lane of no left during X hours, in addition to keeping the signs on the north side of Hill Street. And I think that's a great idea. It does sound like, from what I've heard, that a lot of people think that is a temporary fix that will create problems for other residents, and then there will be this meeting for other residents. So this idea was said by you, ma'am. I forget your name.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth said, what if we put it on every street between town and I don't know till where, but at least until the light so that whole part of Hill Street feels like a residential village street, like someone else said, who is probably gone. But it sounds like we need a radical change because everybody's frustrated, and when people are very frustrated, usually something significant needs to be done to appease the people. So I would urge every single street from where the movie theater is all the way up until that light, all through Hill Street, all those streets on the north and south side between, let's say, 3:30 and 8, because it goes that long now, whether it's the no left or no right. And what I think would happen would be that people very quickly would realize it's actually so much slower, especially if the speed limit does reduce, that they will just say, we'll go to County Road 39. And then hopefully problem solved. If that doesn't work, speed bumps. West Hampton has speed bumps on many residential quiet roads that seem excessive. Every time I'm in West Hampton, I'm like, that's, So imagine we had speed bumps or stop signs. That's my idea, and thank you for hearing it. Thank you for all the work you all do, and to the local officers. Nice to meet you all for the first time. Thanks.
Thank you. Come back again. Thank you. Ma'am.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Jenner. I live
You can
at
lower the
100
microphone a little bit, yeah.
Lee. We've heard some amazing suggestions, and on behalf of everyone on Lee, we have always said we are in favor of sharing this burden, and we never were in favor of directing traffic just to Halsey and getting us and captains free of this burden. So respectfully, I would just like to know what's next. I mean, can we do a pilot? What's involved to get another pilot where some of these suggestions tonight are implemented, are tried? Because I'm leaving this meeting feeling like, okay, now what? Are we going to be back here again next season? I don't know what the protocol is for getting a pilot, but it seems to me that some of these suggestions, namely what this gentleman just said and what you just said about all the restrictions, why don't we try something? And can we try something? And what's the time frame to try something? Summer is almost over. It doesn't mean that we have to wait until next summer. Couldn't we try something in the fall? What is next?
Yeah.
So I appreciate everybody coming here and voicing their opinion and you guys all listening, but we really need to know, okay, now what? So thank you.
No, thank you. I see that we have chiefs from our volunteer fire department and volunteer ambulance corps. I don't know if they have anything they would like to add to this. Ricky? It's up to you. No, it's up to you guys if you'd like to say something. Colby?
All right. Good evening, board. I'm the first assistant chief of the Southampton Fire Department. All right. So, we're all here to talk about the ongoing discussion of the traffic problem. I want to acknowledge the tremendous work that the village has gone into addressing this issue. All the employees, the engineers, the consultants, and the countless hours and significant taxpayer dollars that have gone into trying to find a solution to a very difficult problem. The traffic congestion we experience every year and every day is not a result of something that the village has done wrong. It's a result of the enormous amount of vehicles that travel through Southampton every day. This is a regional transportation problem that extends well beyond our village. Unfortunately, from the fire department's perspective, every traffic pilot program, road closure, turn restriction, and traffic calming measure implemented over the past several years has had one consistent result. It has made emergency response more difficult. Every road that is closed simply shifts the congestion elsewhere. It does not eliminate the traffic. As Newton's third law tells us, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. This is exactly what we have seen with every traffic modification. Every new restriction or change has produced unintended consequences somewhere else in our response district. Last year's cone program on Hill Street, for example, our volunteer firemen responding to the firehouses could not get through traffic because motorists couldn't pull over far enough to the right, and they had nowhere to go to get around the cones. Every minute matters. With today's modern building construction, fires double in size every 30 seconds. The same delays we experienced with our chief's vehicles and our apparatus. We were running over cones and they were getting dragged. It just is, a problem. Then the volunteers have to get home after the calls. And then, so they spend another 45 minutes to an hour sitting in the traffic. This is not sustainable with the 100% volunteer department. Other pilot programs have created similar concerns. Although the department has expressed concerns beforehand, physical barriers were installed that prevented apparatus from accessing neighborhoods from multiple directions. Fortunately, we did not have any major structure fires in those areas, but if we did, our operations would have been compromised. By putting barriers in, it prevents us from accessing these properties from multiple directions. When we have significant fires, we like to have two water sources, especially with the low volumes of water within the village fire hydrants. So I just want to remind the board that these concerns are recognized in the New York State Fire Code. Chapter 5, Section 503, it states that traffic calming devices shall be prohibited unless approved by the fire code official. The code goes on to define traffic calming devices as design elements of fire apparatus access roads, including street alignments, barriers, and other physical measures intended to reduce traffic or cut through traffic. Emergency vehicle access cannot become an afterthought. Unfortunately, there's been instances where traffic calming devices were installed without consultation from the fire department. One example is a speed hump on Halsey Street. And while responding to a house fire with unknown occupants inside on Henry Street during the overnight hours, our first due fire engine struck this poorly marked speed hump. Unexpectedly, it lost control, but fortunately the driver was able to recover the vehicle. This could easily have resulted in injuries, damage, or delays reaching a life-threatening emergency. Additional speed humps have been installed throughout the village and other areas that, again, were not discussed with the fire department. We would just like to ask that before any future traffic calming devices, roadway closures, barriers, or turn restrictions are implemented, the fire department be included in the planning process as required by the fire code. Emergency response and life safety must outweigh traffic convenience. Traffic congestion is frustrating. We understand that. But traffic congestion is not an emergency. House fires are emergencies. Carbon monoxide incidents are emergencies. Motor vehicle accidents are emergencies. Water rescues are emergencies. Every additional minute it takes firefighters to reach the firehouse or the apparatus to reach an emergency can impact lives. As we know, when County Road 39 experiences a major accident, as we all witnessed, it gridlocks the village. What we do when that occurs is we'll backfill and do a standby at the firehouse so we can ensure that the apparatus can get out quickly, but we just cannot do that every single workday or afternoon. I also want to recognize the outstanding work from the police department. Chief Hartow and our officers have devoted tremendous time and effort addressing these traffic challenges, and their commitment is unquestionable. The message that you've been getting from the public safety leaders have remained consistent. Every additional traffic restriction has increased congestion and made emergency response more difficult, and that should carry significant weight. The village has invested substantial public funds studying these traffic issues and implementing pilot programs. Meanwhile, the fire department continues operating frontline emergency vehicles with more than 170,000 miles that are on them and that are frequently out of service and often kept operating with parts from decommissioned vehicles. As future priorities are considered, we respectfully ask that the emergency response capability remain the village's highest public safety priority. Just in closing, this is a long-term solution that lies beyond the village. It requires meaningful regional transportation planning, greater involvement from the county and the state, and investments in alternative transportation that reduce the number of vehicles entering Southampton. Until these solutions are found, we urge the board to ensure that emergency response and the safety remain the highest priority in every traffic decision that's made. And just on behalf of the officers and members of the fire department, we want to thank you for your time and your consideration and for all your support of our volunteer firemen and the residents we proudly serve. So thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. Colby, do you want to say? You don't quite look as sharp as Ricky does.
I know, so I came straight from work. Good evening. My name is Colby Gill. I'm the Second Assistant Chief of the Southampton Village Volunteer Ambulance. We fully support the village's efforts to address the traffic congestion that impacts residents, visitors, and emergency services alike. However, we ask that as solutions are developed, the village keeps emergency response at the forefront of its decision-making. Our ambulance responds throughout the entire village, including the far western end of our district, where traffic congestion can already add valuable minutes to our response time. Those minutes matter during critical medical emergencies where timely access can directly affect patient outcomes. We simply ask that any traffic pattern changes, road modifications, or congestion mitigation measures be carefully evaluated to ensure that we do not further delay emergency vehicles. We support solving the traffic pattern, but not at the expense of public safety or timely emergency medical care. Thank you.
Thank you, Colby. Sir.
I had it's Wayne Miller, Somerset Avenue.
Yeah.
I had 5 minutes of notes and stuff, but I think my neighbor, Carol, got it all out there. So this has been going on for many years. Really what I want to say is you guys have taken action to make Somerset safer. You installed a speed table, you put the guardrail in, and that no right turn works. I mean, it's been limited. The enforcement has been very sporadic, but it worked because we had traffic backing up all the way to Moses and Armand. We still get our share of traffic. Roy, you said it. I mean, we get it all the way up. Now it just goes to McGee instead of all the way back. Mm-hmm. But the key is we have no reported incidents. the street is now safer. So I implore you guys not to consider taking down the no right turn restriction. We have somewhat of a success story. Let's just stay the course there. I wanted to thank you guys also.
Thank
for
you.
Keeping
Thank you,
up the
Wayne.
good work.
Okay, Sage, is there anyone else on Zoom?
No hands.
Okay. Anyone else have any final comments? I mean, I'm looking also at the chief and Ryan to see if you had anything else you wanted to add, or even the lieutenant. Ashley. All right. Any other comments from the village board members?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't heard it tonight, and I'm glad, but I've heard some people say that they think I'm being recalcitrant on this, and I'm not. I'm very, very sympathetic to the issues that people are suffering, particularly on Lee Avenue. You had a late onset of it versus some other roads, a little later, and it came on much harder for you. And so it's a shock, and it's not something anyone expects. And we need a solution. In 2017, I made actually 3 presentations to the village board. I saw former trustee Allen here earlier, but on the issue of traffic. It was really to find ways to try to calm speeding after a fatal accident, traffic accident on Hill Street. But I said at the time that there were signs that volume was building on Hill Street. Then we were starting to get backups to about Einstein's gas station in 2017. That was about as bad as it got. But that it was going to get worse, and that we were also I was starting to see, because I was paying attention, more people speeding during commuter hours on Halsey Neck, on Lee Avenue, on Moses, on Halsey, as they raced to try to get as quickly through parts of the village as possible. And I said at the time that I thought there was going to be more congestion, more backup on Hill Street, and that the speeding, unfortunately, on those side roads would be replaced by bumper-to-bumper traffic, and that it was an issue that was coming. I don't say that with any particular pride. We haven't addressed the issue because we haven't really focused on the overall cause. The one comment I really wanted to make, we call this cut-through traffic as though there's some other race of people who live just east of the village and are coming through our roads. Most of the people who are making these commutes work in the village. They work at the hospital, they work in shops, they work at restaurants, they're first responders, they're teachers. So we can call it cut-through traffic. They're the people who are commuting to our village to provide us the services that we want and need. And so very, very little net traffic enters the village on the east side of the village during commuter hours and comes through. There's one exception, and that's Mariner Drive. Mariner Drive is an exception because there's about 600 to 800 vehicles that go there every day for different reasons. They come in off the highway, most of them, because they can. It's easy to do. They muddle through some traffic, but they get to that lane at David White's Lane, the light at David White's Lane, and they turn in there and they go to Mariner Drive. In the afternoon, those vehicles don't reverse that commute because you can only get 1 or 2 or 3 cars through at best on a light cycle. And it's not just Mariner Drive. That's true for workers at the hospital. It's true for workers at all of our schools during the school year. And it's true for workers at Town Hall. My guesstimate is we have 2,000 to 2,200 cars that come in off of the highway every day onto David White's Lane to get to those big employment centers here in the village, who choose wisely, logically I would say, not to reverse that commute because they can't get back on a county road. So, I think only about 400 or 500 of them do during commuter hours reverse it. So that's 1,500 to 2,000 cars or so that are additionally coming through the village. This is why I think the afternoon commute is worse in the village. And most of them don't want to sit on North Sea Road. That's no picnic. So they take their chances to come back through. The ones who work at the hospital or work in the downtown right here on Job's Lane, it's easier for them to go south than it is to try to get onto to North Sea Road. And my bigger point is, if we sent all of that traffic up North Sea Road to get it to the highway, as has been discussed tonight, we're going to create gridlock from the highway back down into the village. We have more traffic to deal with than can just go up to the county road, no matter what disincentives we have. Lastly, I would just say there are there are actually a lot of people who work in the area south of Hill Street and west of Lake Agawam. I am working on a project down there right now with a client. When I go down about 1.5 miles west from Halsey Neck Lane to my project, I pass 6 other construction sites. There are as many as 70 or 80 other vehicles on those sites. Typical average for those larger sites is 20, 25 vehicles. There are more than 25 building permits open in that section, the estate district, whatever you want to call it right now. If they average 15 or 20 cars, you're talking about 400 or 500 cars that are just there for construction jobs in that area. There's a lot of domestic workers in that area, as well as there is in the rest of the village. But, you know, we're talking about 800 to 1,000, as many as 1,000 cars that are commuting into that area every day. Do we really want to send them back up First Neck Lane? Is that fair to First Neck Lane? Do we want to send them through the village and clog village traffic? I don't know the answer to that question, but I ponder it, because I think we need to be honest and fair about and really understand this term cut-through traffic. The cut-through traffic are the people who are providing services to us and our neighbors. It's mostly local workers. And so I think just saying, well, let's shut down the village and put up a do not enter sign effectively on the western edge, it's not going to change who's coming here, which is why, you know, I know it's a much longer term solution. Getting to better use of train and public transportation for as many regular workers as possible. Say regular workers, people who commute regularly, predictable hours. It has to be on the table. I'm fully on board with trying to get to some kind of pilot program to see whether these ideas work or whether the worst would happen. I guess we didn't hear it a year ago or 2 years ago when pilots were proposed and done. But what we're hearing now is that in the eyes of some that those pilots were flawed, maybe because of notice and communication issues and not letting them go long enough. So I just asked the question maybe to my fellow trustees, what are the parameters of a successful pilot program to try something right now? Whether it's removing all restrictions or restricting all roads and giving it, is it, you know, I don't know if Ryan, if you have a sense of this, is it a month? Is it 3 or 4 weeks, but with 3 or 4 weeks of notice beforehand to really get the word out and get signage up and raise awareness? We thought we were entering successful pilot programs before, and apparently we may not have been. Or people are saying that and don't believe the results that we saw. So what would a successful pilot program look like potentially that would be acceptable and give good results? I don't know if you want to address that, Ryan.
And I know the chief wanted to speak as well, so we'll let Ryan go first. Thank you,
Are
Ryan.
we going to have an option to?
Yeah, sure. I just want Ryan to maybe interject here.
Sure. Just to answer the question specifically about the time of a pilot and its effectiveness, with any pilot, the key is education and advanced notice for these programs, because you don't want people halfway through to realize that something is happening. Obviously you want them to know in advance so that they can account for it and make adjustments. Not that it's going to have tweaks along the way, but at least they'll be prepared for what's coming. At least the majority of the folks will. As we spoke about, not everybody is living in the village and able to readily hear these messages, but a lot of these folks do pass through here on a regular basis. So if there's signage out, typically they will be seen and observed. In terms of the time, 2 to 4 weeks is typically what we see on many pilots, just for time and resource restrictions. The longer you can do it, the better. But the results from a 2-week pilot don't differ drastically from a 4-week pilot. I mean, you get what you're going to get essentially within that time frame that you're studying, assuming that you have done the education component to an outreach to make folks aware that it's happening.
Would it be fair to, I'm going to put words in your mouth, would it be fair to say that if we could give significantly more time to the education, awareness raising, signage aspect to it, that would potentially have more impact and get a better, quicker adoption rate, and as opposed to maybe extending a pilot? I'm not opposed to the idea of extending the pilot itself, but that upfront education sounds like it's pretty important in your mind.
It would certainly help. The last pilot we had, I know the first few days were a little chaotic with folks not really understanding what was happening and trying to navigate through some of the restrictions that were in place. You know, the more we can do to cut that off and the more valuable data we get, like from the second week of that program, is what you're really looking for.
Roy, did you want to say something?
I did. Not specifically about this, more about everything in general.
Okay. But you can speak now, and then we'll hear from the chief, because I think the chief wants to say something.
Just to, as Trustee Coburn spoke, the situation is, it's not black and white. It's complex, and the sentiment has been made this evening that you guys need to do something. You're not taking. You got to use technology, and you just have to keep working at. Well, that's all true. We are trying to use technology. Bill has gone to Albany. He has lobbied to get speed cameras so that we can use technology. The state legislator has not seen fit to do that yet. We need to keep working on that. You guys can help. Contact our state legislature, Tommy John Chivoni. Email Governor Hochul, say, we have an emergency situation in Southampton. We need your help. We need technology. The other point was made that the people who live in the west side of the village are taxpayers and constituents of the board. So is the whole village. We really try to have to think of the whole village. And as Trustee Coburn said, the situation can be so bad that all of a sudden the problem breaks out somewhere else, and we have to be cognizant of that. What Chief Fowler and Colby said about the ambulance and emergency services and having to be cognizant of their issues is another factor that has to come into everything we do. That said, as I said earlier, we have an emergency. Our emergency is so bad that the other day I got a phone call at my store about 5:30. Roy, what is going on Hill Street? I was like, I don't know, what's going on? There's no traffic. There's no traffic. I was like, I don't know. Well, it was a very, very rainy day, so of course all the workers didn't go to work that day. But when you get a call when there's no traffic, that's when you know that you've got a serious situation here. So I think we do have to try something. I think we have to see what goes on, and my point, I've made it several times, is if we're going to try anything, let's try and make it equitable. So I'd be in favor of prohibiting the turns on Lee Captains and Halsey. What's the worst thing that can happen? I mean, what's the best thing that happens? By some miracle, it actually might help. On the other hand, it could be disaster, and all of a sudden the traffic flows everywhere else, and we go, oh my God, what have we done? Most likely what happens is that it's helpful. As people have said on Somerset, it was helpful. Still people cut through. Police can't arrest everybody. We try to enforce it, but they've only got 30 people to enforce. So some people still cut through on Somerset. And sure enough, if you're on Hill Street and you see that person cutting through, you go, what a jerk that person is. But it is helpful. It has reduced it. And I bet it would reduce it on Lee and Captains and Halsey too. Now, where would it push it? Problem breaks out somewhere else. And then we as a board have to go, okay, we've made it a little better here. Now what do we do to try and fix it there? And that's our job, is to keep working at it. But I don't think we can just say, man, this is too tough, we can't do anything. We have to try something, and that's why I'd be in favor of action rather than not, and relying on VHB and police chief and our emergency services people to come up with the best way to actually try something and just throw some mud at the wall and see what sticks, see how helpful it is. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Simpson.
I think the time has come for some real action at this point. I think we've heard enough from the public, which I thank very much for coming forward and giving us some great ideas. But I think that first of all, we should implement something in the near term, starting with a way of educating and getting Waze involved so that they know that we're implementing the no left turns, and we should have the no left turns on Lee, Captain's Neck, and Halsey Neck, definitely. And so maybe a week or two in order to give, to educate the public of what we're doing in Waze. And then I think the pilot should go on for at least 60 days. Let's really see what the long-term effect is, how the traffic patterns will progress from that point on after as a result of the no left turns, and then we take it from there. But definitely, let's move forward on this. I think it's important.
Oh, well, no, I agree with Trustee Simeone and also everybody here. We have to do something urgently. We should do it as quickly as possible. And, you know, we should do everything in our power to dissuade people from using any of those streets as cut-throughs to, you know, because it's just an untenable situation from what I see from, you know, and hear from all of you. And looking at the Nelson Pope studies, there's hard data in there. We paid $8,000 for the study. We probably should have listened to it. Initially, it has very common sense, you know, recommendations, and we should rely on people like that with the hard data and the recommendations and try it out. Why not try it out? It's a terrible situation for residential streets. Everyone's made that point. They're not designed for this, and people are, you know, trapped in their homes, and that's not safe. And we should certainly also apprise our emergency services of whatever we're doing. So I'm glad that they made that point, and thanks everyone for showing up. I read every letter, and you know, we came up, you know, that helps us get a good picture of what's going on, and let's just try it ASAP.
I'll be real quick. I would ask the board to maybe ask Ryan, or I'll ask you, if you can include First Neck Lane into that restriction. I know that we may have to deal with it later on, but I would do it now. And then, is there a possibility in your, you know, when you look at this, to sync? I would assume all those cars going off of First Neck are going to go onto Windmill Lane. So is there a way we could sync up all those traffic lights up to 39? And then the light at 39 and oh my God, North Sea Road, that intersection, the light that takes traffic north, that pulls traffic north of 39. During the U.S. Open, we had Suffolk County Police there directing traffic or just standing there. We had to actually go up there and teach them how to pull that traffic through the intersection. So what really helped the village during the U.S. Open, North Sea Road backed up all the way to Tate's and all the way past our headquarters. So where North Sea Road veered off and North Main Street split, everything was backed up. So we went up there, and nobody could make the left turn onto County Road 39. So what we did was we skipped the cycle. So we pulled everybody through North Sea Road that wanted to go north of 39. It emptied out the village. And then while we extended that light cycle, when it stopped, we were able to allow people to make that left turn onto 39 because it gave more room. So, you know, if we can tweak that light up there and possibly put all these restrictions in place in a pilot, and I do think it's going to take longer than 2 weeks to notify the public, and I'm just basing that on my experience with the pilots that we have done over the years. I would, and I know that what I'm about to say may not be popular, but I don't think we should start this pilot until after Labor Day and let it run its course. Just let it run its course through the year, and let's see what happens come April when the trade parade comes back out here. And hopefully people will know what they're doing already. We have established, we signed up for Ways for Cities, so we're going to be able to tell them, hey, this pilot's in place, these are the restrictions. It'll go on the apps when people are driving, and maybe it'll help. So I think we should take First Neck Lane into consideration with that restriction as well. If we're going to do it, we must do it all the way down the line. And then if, Ryan, you can look into the traffic lights being synced up and that intersection at North Sea Road and County Road 39. I think that is a county light, so we are going to have to deal with the county again.
Yeah, the chief, the only thing is if you include First Neck, everyone's going to have to either take Pond Lane or Culver
Or
if they get all the way that
South
far
Lane.
down First Neck Lane.
No,
it's only closed at Hill Street, correct? That was what you were suggesting?
It would be a right turn, and this would only be from 4 to 8.
Right. Understood.
Yeah, 4 to 8. And I mean, we're going to have to, it's going to be a big undertaking for us to implement it in the beginning.
Yeah.
But we're hoping in the months that it's less traffic and less people are out here, it might just be muscle memory for people by the time next spring comes. I don't know. It's just something to think about.
So,
Go ahead.
a couple comments. First of all, as part of, I agree with you. I think the communication, the awareness raising is multi-week. It's more than a week or two. I think in addition to notifying the public, we really need to notify businesses and major employers. Those are the people who need to get the word out to their employees, to get them to prepare for carpooling or making other means or shifting their hours, whatever it might take, or just at least being prepared for the fact that it could take them a while. We could have complete traffic nightmare between the village and the county road on North Sea Road. It's possible. I hope not, but it's possible. The communication should be in English and Spanish. All of our communications have to be in English and Spanish. And yeah, the First Neck Lane thing, you know, in addition to the construction workers I talked about and the domestic workers who are down there, we've got a park at the end of Meadow Lane. We've got 100 employees who work at the 2 clubs that are down in that area. We're going to be sending 1,000 vehicles down either Culver or down South Main Street through the heart of the village. I need to really think hard about that, about closing down First Neck Lane.
Just, I mean, we're not closing it down. We're putting a turn restriction on like the others road. So I'm just throwing it out there.
I appreciate it.
You know, just
I don't
something to
ever
think about.
disagree with you, but
Yeah, no, it's totally fine.
Just raising a concern.
Yep.
But
Okay.
yeah, but I think we have to consult
Yeah.
with Ryan as
Oh, yeah.
well, and you know, I think if we want to do this and we want to give some adequate time, we should talk to Ryan, and then we can I guess vote on approving it next week on the 13th, and go from there.
Yeah, I think if you know, after you talk with Ryan and he comes up, and he may not say that First Neck may not be an option this go around. We might have to deal with it when it happens. But I think we start it, if the board agrees with everything and it's safe and fire and EMS are on board with it, we start it September 15th and just let it ride.
Okay. All right, so Ryan, will we be speaking this week about trying to do that? But anyway, anyone else have final? Okay, sir, you already spoke, but do you?
I did not
Oh, you
speak.
did not know your
He
wife
didn't-
spoke. I'm sorry, I apologize. Please come
Could we hear
forward.
from you?
Well, I said we were going to talk to Ryan, and we will look at having a vote next week to put into place a pilot program that would at least include the 3 streets. I don't think it's good to include First Neck because of the reasons why I said I think everyone's going to be down Pond Lane and Culver, which is going to be crazy. But so we have to just wait until we can have a little more discussion about how this is actually going to work. We have to talk to the police, talk about her resources, her ability to, try and enforce these no left turn restrictions, as well as Ryan to understand, because he has actually data when we've done some of the pilots before, and maybe it would help us guide us on what is going to be the potential outcome from doing this. Yeah, so thank you. All right, I think we've covered all that. Now we actually have a couple of suggested resolutions. The first one is for a public hearing on the stop sign at Moses. So we get to hear everyone weigh in on the stop sign at Moses, whether they like it or don't like it. But I was going to turn to Ed for the just the notice of public hearing.
All right, suggested resolutions. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Southampton has determined that this proposed local law is considered a Type 2 action under 6 NYCRR Part 617.5 C22 of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQRA, and that no further review under New York Environmental Conservation Law, Article 8, is necessary. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village Board hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held as a hybrid in-person Zoom meeting on August 13, 2026 at 6 p.m. at the Village Meeting Room at the Southampton Village Hall, located at 23 Main Street, Southampton, New York, 11968, to hear any and all persons either for or against a proposed local law entitled, a local law amending Chapter 110 of the Village Code, Vehicles and Traffic, by updating the schedules related to stop intersections 110-37 Schedule F, and be it further resolved that the village clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish and post the following notice of public hearing. The Village Board hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held as a hybrid in-person Zoom meeting on August 13, 2026 at 6 p.m. at the Village Meeting Room at the Southampton Village Hall, located at 23 Main Street, Southampton, New York, 11968, to hear any and all persons either for or against a proposed local law entitled, a local law amending Chapter 110 of the Village Code Vehicles and Traffic by updating the schedules related to stop intersections 110-37 Schedule F. Copies of the proposed law, sponsored by Mayor Willie Manger Jr., are in file in the village clerk's office Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Number 2, resolve the Board of Trustees authorizes the village administrator to issue a request for proposals to qualified respondents to install new or lease the current infrastructure throughout the village to meet the needs of expanding electric car ownership, as well as maintain and operate charging stations at no cost to the village. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Just as a
Go
point. So the company that the village chose to go with several years ago with the charging stations actually went out of business. So we had to go through a whole process with the village attorney to make sure that they were abandoning that equipment, and that the village could take over that rather than have someone come and take them back. I believe you said that they have said that they are now ours and we can do with it what we want. I'm sorry.
It was a joint venture. One of them never responded to us, and the other one said they relinquish all claims.
Okay, so now we have.
And the locations of these
Look.
are back here in West Main parking lot, over by the train station, and is there one other?
There is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lake Agawam.
Then Lake
Yeah.
Agawam.
Yeah. So anyway, the point I was just trying to make was, unfortunately, the business that had our charging stations went out of business, and now we went through the process. As you heard with the joint venture, they've said they relinquished them to the village. So now we are going out to do an RFP to get someone else to, again, compete for the charging stations in the village so we can get those up and running again. Is there anyone else who wants to say anything? So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Scott, I'll let you do some of these mayoral appointments for the end of summer employees.
Resolved that Mayor Manger appoints and requests a motion from the Board of Trustees to approve the hiring of the Coopers Beach personnel effective August 6, 2026. Beach attendants at $18 an hour is Charlie Kellis, Carter Trelease, Thayer Schwartz. Schwartz is effective July 22, 2026. Picnic Beach area attendants, $27 an hour is Nicolania.
Yeah, those are the. Yeah. So, again, just so people understand, because we have a lot of kids who go back to college, go back to school, they're not available at the end of the summer. So every year we usually have to, again, add some additional employees to have coverage at our beaches, specifically Cooper's and in this instance, the picnic area. So I will make a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, resolved that Mayor appoints and the Board of Trustees approves the hiring of 2026 seasonal park staff with an effective date August 7, 2026. Parks Department, Jake Cook at $18 hourly.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Again, this is just to help with some of the additional parks work that we have, and Steve said that we really need someone else to help us here at the end of the summer, so that's what this is for. So I'll make a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that is the.
Didn't you have a walk-on?
Wait, yeah, we're getting to that. But what I was going to do is, unfortunately, go into executive session before we do that. So I want to thank everyone for coming, and I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss some personnel issues.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I assume I'm.